I say, my grandmother told me, if you don't have nothing good to say, don't say nothing. But we got some good things to talk about today. So first, let's get this disclaimer out of the way. So what I'm about to say are my words, my thoughts, my suggestions, my energy. They're not anything related to Off the Rack Industries, Red Sage Productions, Across the Fader Entertainment, and any other persons associated with this broadcast. These are totally coming out of this noggin right here. Smartest child since 1973 is what they said. So let's talk about what's going on today, man. Inflection points. Points in time where things kind of flip on their head. So today we're going to talk about this new inflection point called chickens coming home to roost. Got that from good old Malcolm Shabazz, Malcolm X, when he talked about John F. Kennedy being shot in Dallas. So what we saw being shot the other day on Capitol Hill was that myth about the principle of the goodness of white supremacy. They call us heathens and all kinds of crazy names during the Black Lives Matter protests when some of us became violent. But the other day, January the 6th, the new day that will live in infamy, we saw them do exactly what we've known them to do all the time. It kind of reminded me of a standard lynch mob. What was being lynched? Democracy. The idea that their supremacy allowed them to think that they had domain over everything. You had folks rushing that building talk about this our house. As most white folks believe, they have dominion over all that they can see. That's called white supremacy. And then you saw white officers at the Capitol Police moving barriers, taking selfies, opening doors in some instances for those rioters, those insurrectionists, those treasonous bastards to get into the beautiful house of Congress, where we're supposed to be law-abiding citizens, not the heathens that they saw and broadcast so many times on Fox News and such other state TV outlets, where all they kept showing was us breaking into one window, one time, broadcast 1 million times. But this was 1 million of them breaking into every damn offices of that building. Breaking windows, doors, smashing officers in between doors. One officer was killed after he was hit with a fire extinguisher and trampled. You had one young lady being shot as she tried to propel herself through one of the windows. I saw the Facebook post of that young lady in her ride to the event. She was ranting and raving all these conspiracy theories straight from our commander and fool, Donald J. Trump. She had drank 2 gallons of the Kool-Aid that he was dispersing and ended up with one in the neck. I hate to see anyone pass away such a way, but you get what your hand called for. Ain't a whole lot to it. Or breaking your house, you got a weapon, you probably gonna discharge it. So that's what happened in that incident. But let's talk about the inflection points. Because see, right now you hear Joe Biden say we're gonna build back better. You heard Donald Trump talk about make America great again. What they really talking about is a reintroduction to an inflection point in history where chickens come home to roost. That is a direct result of 2 things involving together and causing a collision that must make change. So let's look back a little bit in history on inflection points. So let's do some comparisons. Right after slavery America entered a time called Reconstruction. Build back better, Joe Biden. Reconstruction. After this inflection point of slavery, Lincoln did his thing, but they made concessions to the southern states because you got to follow the money. See, it all goes back to money and power, power and respect. First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the respect. We heard that song, right? So the truth to light is, cotton was king after slavery. It was our best export. We own international trade through cotton, which was produced in the South. So they made all kinds of concessions and allowed the states to run autonomously in the way they did business. And it developed with the ending of Reconstruction into Jim Crow. Then let's look at it. During Reconstruction, we had more state senators, Congress people, people of color owning land and businesses than ever in that time of day in the history of America. Reconstruction, Build Back Better. We had all these black folks getting into office, standing up, thinking that they had gotten a slice of the American pie. Well, what it did, it encroached upon the power and the money structure of old man Cotton down in the South. So they had to control them niggas, them good niggas, not the bad, the good niggas. We had to control them. Good niggers, as they called us. Business owners, people of political power, doctors, lawyers, teachers, all these people that were adding to this inflection point in American history called Reconstruction. They introduced Jim Crow laws. And we lived under those Jim Crow laws into the next inflection point, which was called the Civil Rights Movement, where we marched, we begged, and we pleaded. We got injured, we got killed, we got hung on a regular because we were chipping away at the supremacy of our oppressor. Then they gave us this little pacifier called the Civil Rights Bill and a few amendments to the Constitution that made us feel like we were more than less than 1/5 of a man. Now we recognized as human beings. Oh, but we didn't pay attention to the fine print. There was always fine print, like in the good old 13th Amendment. We say we were all men and had all these rights except for when you commit a crime. Then you lose all those rights. So they went on a plan of mass incarceration. But if we're going to mass incarcerate these fools, it costs too much money to keep them and feed them. So let's industrialize the prison system. So we started building underwear for Victoria's Secrets, building furniture. We started building shoes for Barker and all these other things. Industrialized the prison complex, which made it money related. So they got paid off of sending them black and brown brothers to prison. And those that they couldn't get into prison, they sent to war. And those they couldn't get control of after war, they introduced addiction. See, Jim Crow was still alive. He just put on a different hat. White supremacy went from group hangings and mob structures in white hoods to putting on police uniforms, business suits, politician ties and shirts and buttons on the lapel with the U.S. flag. So, I remember this old song, I believe it was by KRS-One, when he said, think about the word officer and its origin. It was overseer, officer. Reflection points, Reconstruction, Build Back Better, Joe Biden. So what happened was, you saw white privilege at its best. You saw the red carpet being rolled out for these protesters and wondered, where's all the police protection? When we were doing Black Lives Matter, we ran into resistance from all state, local, federal. We had officers from the Department of Defense, the Bureau of Prisons, military, police, everybody was on the scene. Look what they did when they blew up in front of 16th Street, Pennsylvania Avenue, just because old dumbass Donald Trump wanted to walk across the street and hold up a Bible upside down. They cleared that area with munitions, tear gas, and the like. But we saw none of that when it came to them marching down Constitution in Pennsylvania Avenue. 15 blocks it took them to get to the east side of the Capitol. Okay? They had more than enough time to get the people in place to protect that building. But a few things happens, ladies and gentlemen. There's always a back door to everything. So you ask yourself, and we keep getting stuck on this premise that, oh, it's about the difference between black and white. Yeah, that's the encroachable idea they want us to believe, that it's a black and white scenario. No. This is an inflection point, ladies and gentlemen. This is because of the changes that have been taking place over the last year in regards to white supremacy and white power. Donald Trump came into office as a puppet for white supremacy and white power. That's why he did things like say, well, I got the Proud Boys, and I got the police, and I got all the tough people with me. He already knew not only how to rally his base, but who was in his base that he could mobilize at his whim. Those were his soldiers. Them his dudes. Them his mans in them. Them his niggas. Let's keep it real blunt. Them his niggas. Okay? So what he did was, catch this now. Ever since he's been in office, he's been building momentum with the disenfranchised superior race of white folk in America. All we had to do was identify to them what they had lost that they believed they were entitled to. Jobs, all the economic stuff, land ownership, rights, the dominion over others. You are now losing your power structure. Drugs, opioids has invaded your community. Let's take all the money out of detoxification where all the blacks are getting clean and throw all the money into rehabilitation. Let's throw all the money into drug treatment centers for opioids and the like. And then we're going to industrialize that so that can start getting some money to us as well. It's always about the dollar. But let's go back to what was really going on. They were selfish and self-centered back in the 60s. They stopped having babies, which means you're going to stop being the fucking majority. And majorities rule. Majorities have the funds, the power, the respect. So when the 70s and 80s and 90s came about, we started having open borders and people from Mexico and other Southern American brown people started coming in here. It was like, ho, we need to stop that bullshit because our numbers are dwindling. Our culture has changed to now when you answer a phone, you got to say press 1 for English, press 2 for Spanish. So they already knew that their numbers were dwindling and our culture and operational principles were changing in America away from white supremacy, more into inclusion. The new white babies, the millennials and such, were now getting educated outside of that terrible public school system with those fucked up history books that told us Columbus, founded America when he actually landed in the fucking Caribbean and almost got his ass killed, but he was a carnivore and killed most people that he met. You know what I'm saying? So now we can do a lot of history tracking and retooling and reteaching ourselves and start to understand that during Reconstruction, we had more black inventors and black people in power than ever in any time of the history of America. They didn't want to go back to that. They wanted to frame us, tame us, lame us, injure us, have us limping to the table and asking for scraps. They wanted us to be Samuel L. Jackson in Django. You know that character. Well, he only looked out for himself. The hell with the rest of my people. So they created that in us. That's why we can't correct little JoJo down the street when he's messing up and his parents come down and who put their hands on my son? You know, it's no more of a village raising a kid anymore. It's every idiot for itself now, especially in the black community. That's all designed so we can promote negativity in our lives, in our lane, so they can continue the path of white supremacy. So don't get mad at the white man. Clean up your street and point to his street and say how dirty his side of the track is. Build back better, Joe Biden. We're at this inflection point. So why weren't the resistance there like it was during the Black Lives Matter protest? It's because at this inflection point, COVID got us all at home locked in, watching the boob tube and seeing everything in front of us on the internet. We watched George Floyd get that knee to his neck for over 8 minutes and die in front of us. It angered most of us, surprised many of them, and they joined in. And that scared the hell out of white supremacists because that allowed them to really understand that their numbers were dwindling. Even amongst their own ranks, their numbers were dwindling in the ideological idea of white supremacy. So what does the dick in charge at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue do? When it's regarding minorities, I'm going to call in every federal force that I can to back up local police enforcement because I'm the chief of law and order. No, dude, you the chief oppressor. And the oppressed are now included in your white community. We got more people of whiteness that are drug addicts and poor than ever before. Right in front of everybody's eyes. So the wool has been pulling off. The Band-Aid been ripped off that scab called injustice. And it's bleeding out. So now what do we got? So now what happened at the Capitol? They had all this intel for 2 months about all this insurrection activity and so forth and so on. But DC police can only tell them what they know. The FBI can only tell what they know. They had to be activated by DOD to be able to send in armed forces that they govern. Bureau of Prison, military police, all those jokers that showed up for Black Lives Matter protests under the behest of Donald Trump because he was the commander-in-chief. Now, why would he turn police force against his own men's and them? So when the Capitol Police, who are one of the most racist organizations in law enforcement that I know of, they were in on it. Why you think their leadership resigned without inquiry or question? Why do you think the sergeant at arms of both houses of Congress resigned immediately without inquiry or question? Dude, it is a deep, deep conspiracy going on that allowed those folks to be able to rush into that building. They didn't come in to do anything other than disrupt the certification of Joe Biden electoral college vote. That was their only intent. It was their last stand. They failed in court. They failed at the booth. The ballot said he lost by tremendous numbers. We had the biggest turnout in this voting session in 2020 ever in the history of America. It didn't show us exactly the divide. Hell, we already knew we were divided. Them over there, us over here. That's known. But what they didn't count on was the us over here getting up off our asses and numbers and going to vote. But let's look at the symbolic Deep South. King Cotton Land. White supremacist capital. We got Georgia as a state who has one of the biggest monuments to the Confederacy called Stone Mountain. If you ever been there, it'll make you throw up. So they try to make a Mount Rushmore for white supremacy. That's all that Stone Mountain is. All the Confederate guys carved into a fucking granite of stone. Just like we did with our presidents at Mount Rushmore. Ridiculous. But what happened? Let's talk about symbolic. Let's talk about last stand, inflection points. Chickens coming home to roost. See, Georgia is the heart of Dixie. Georgia on my mind. They had all them black folks in Georgia, and they had them suppressed and uneducated and working 9-to-5s. But they ran up against a real smart lady named Stacey Abrams, and they stole the governorship from her. But unlike what happens with most black people that's been whipped in the South, she decided this ain't the last run. And she galvanized them folks in that state and got those voters to come out in numbers, and her and some other young ladies. It was the women who did it, black women who did it. The same black women who allowed and worked with Jim Clyburn to get Biden to win in South Carolina and turn this whole thing around from a presidential nomination perspective. It was black women. It's always been black women. Black men, we so fucking far behind. Our head is so in the sand. We heard a whole lot of black men with this rhetoric about voting for Donald Trump, you assholes. Okay? We had a lot of black preachers laying hands on Donald Trump, praying for him, standing up, trying to get blacks to vote for him. All that ignoramus, shucking and jiving, stepping, feshing, acting ass niggas. Where you at now? Mr. Evangelistic, where you at now? Chickens came home to roost, but you wasn't invited to the party. Because you was a damn fool for following the devil. You follow the devil, you're going to lead you to the same place where he found you. In the back, in depression, in submission, oppressed. You can't believe the sauce. Just because he giving you what you think you need, he backing up your values, and all of a sudden you want to just give up on your congregation and have folks follow this fool. Oh, you need to lose all the mega churches, my brothers. Give us all back the money that we done donated to your Mercedes-Benz and your fucking airplanes, Mr. Evangelistic preacher who followed Donald Trump. Yeah, I'm talking to all you black idiots who pledged your allegiance to a fool. But in Georgia, that black community not only grew, they grew in education, they grew in wealth, they grew in numbers. They were understanding the inflection point after Stacey Abrams lost that governor race. They went to work, Dad, and them black ladies went to work, knocking on doors, calling people, emailing, texting, social media, the whole nine. I love that Stacey Abrams. She could have been the vice president. She should be the next governor of the state of Georgia. Now that it's blue. So let's look what happened. They had a runoff. Who did we run against? Raphael Warnock, the preacher from Martin Luther King's church, versus Kelly Loeffler. Now this gonna hit you. Billionaire husband. Where she get her money from? Oh, Bitcoins. All you black folks out here talking about, I'm going to get on this Bitcoin train, I'm going to trade it, I'm going to make money. You supporting white supremacy. At the end of the day, it's always about money. So Kelly Loeffler, staunch supporter of Donald Trump, backed by all the Bitcoin money, she loaned herself $24 million of your investing in Bitcoin money. Mr. Smart Ass Investor, if you want to know what to do with your money, come holler at me. That's what I do on the other side of this mic.